But guys, this changes everything, because Ukraine just unveiled and put into operation brand new and extremely dangerous naval drones called Cossack Mamay, and now the defenseless poor Crimean Bridge is pretty much doomed. And besides that, looks like we finally have an answer in the Prigozhin elimination case. But more about all of this in just a couple of minutes. What's up, investors? It's the Russian dude.
Let's get straight to the point and talk about some ridiculous Russian propaganda.
Today we have one of Russian Z Patriots, which was spotted in one of Russian, I guess looks like subways or the buses, and he was not pretty happy to be a Russian Z Patriot. He was looking down and he was kinda even looks like ashamed of himself for wearing this t-shirt, which is basically the picture of Putin, who is saying, NATO and European Union, go away from Russia, we don't want you here. But you know what, another thing I spotted about this Z Patriot is that he kinda suspiciously appeared right after the elimination of Prigozhin, and he does kinda look like him, just a little bit, maybe after some couple procedures, some liposuction, some fat removal or anything like this, maybe a little bit shaved or something, but there are some similarities and I think you can agree. And don't worry, we will talk once again about the Prigozhin elimination case in this video, but a little bit later. Because right now let's quickly talk about Ukrainians who just put into operation a brand new and extremely destructive naval drone, which puts Crimean Bridge into extreme danger. And long story short, back in the beginning of December, the Ukrainian Navy hinted us with this teaser, which was showing new drones called Magura V5, and then also in the shadows there were previously unidentified naval drones. And then, approximately 2 to 3 weeks later, Ukrainian Navy finally released a video with this new drone, which they decided to call Cossack Mamay. As you can see in this picture, this is how it looks. And along with another naval drone called Sea Baby, these are pretty much the dominant drones right now who are operating in the Black Sea. And one of the best features of this brand new drone Cossack Mamay is that it can sail at a speed exceeding 110 kilometers per hour, and besides this, it is not just sailing in the straight line, it can also maneuver in these speeds, which makes it almost impossible, or at least extremely complicated, to intercept such drone. The Defense Intelligence of Ukraine later even showed us another video where one of the drones called Sea Baby was engaging in the fire with the Russian vessels. Previously, the Ukrainian drones were kinda trying to avoid direct contact, but now they're no longer afraid. Now they do have the fire capabilities which they can respond to the Russian attacks, making them even more deadly to the Russian fleet. But you know what? It is not just the naval drones, because Ukrainians also developed another land drone with the turret, which is able to perform other combat activities, and they called it D-2111. And then yet another one which looks like is still unnamed, as you can see from this video, with its primary responsibilities to plant up to 6 anti-tank mines. But wait, there is more. Besides Ukrainians developing their own military equipment, other countries continue to support the country, such as for example Denmark and Sweden is pledging 25 more infantry fighting vehicles called CV-90. And then the country of Germany is also pledging another military support package, which will include ammunition for Leopards, 10 BMP Marders, Iris-T and Patriot missiles, Skynex air defense system, radars, ammunition and tanks for demining, and also even one bridge building machine. And well, what about Russians? How are they fighting against this increase in the military support to Ukraine? Well, they continue to install these barbecue grills on top of their military vehicles, which will only makes the personnel, the driver and other infantry, which makes it harder for them to climb inside and outside of the vehicle, with providing limited to none protection from the drones and missiles. And so, what do you think the consequences of all this? Don't worry, I'm gonna tell you right now. But if you want to hear the answer, simply like this video and subscribe to my channel. This is as much as I can ask you to do, because this does help my work a lot. Thank you so much. You can also follow me on Instagram, the link is down below. And so yes, to answer this question, we should refer to the head of security services of Ukraine, Vasyl Maluk. But to be honest, I think you can already guess where this is going. Ukrainians are emphasizing their military efforts on the naval drones, specifically in the Black Sea and then also in the Azov Sea. And this is the location of the notorious Crimean Bridge. And according to Vasyl Maluk, this year the bridge will have a lot of unpleasant surprises, to say the least. Because obviously, and every single one of us already know this, the Crimean Bridge is pretty much the biggest artery of the Russian supplies which go through the Crimean Peninsula and then to the south of Ukraine. It is not as protected as it used to be in the beginning of the war, so Russians are very cautious about using it, and is not even yet fully restored. That is why they still have now to use sometimes the big barges to bring their military vehicles, weapons, ammunition by water. But still, Ukrainians already showed that this bridge is in the range for their attacks, which makes it very complicated and very tricky for Russians to continue using it, especially because Ukrainians confirmed their goals for 2024, which is the main one of them is the destruction of the Crimean Bridge itself. And you know what? Even the nature itself already helps Ukrainians, because if you remember, some time ago, approximately in November, Russians were sinking some vessels next to the Crimean Bridge in order to protect it from the drones and underwater attacks. But in the recent storm, which happened approximately in the end of November, December, these underwater defenses were destroyed by the nature. Ukrainians did not even have to do anything. As you can see from these images and this comparison before and after video, the way right now is open. And so to sum up these two chapters, this is what we have. First of all, Zelensky once again reinforced the idea and goals for 2024 is to deoccupy Ukraine, which starts with the threatening and potentially even destroying the Crimean Bridge. Then we have Vasyl Maluk, the head of security services of Ukraine, who pretty much reinforced and said exactly the same. Crimean Bridge should be very afraid, if bridges had feelings. And the reason number 3 is that Ukrainians started emphasizing their military production efforts in the naval drones and the warfare on the water. So I think it is pretty obvious at this point, once again, Crimean Bridge will have a lot of surprises in the upcoming year, in this year, and Ukrainians already start doing military activities in the peninsula itself. Such as, for example, this and last week there was a lot of destruction of the Russian raiders and electronic warfare equipment, which will help Ukrainians in the future to attack the Crimean Bridge not just with the naval drones, but with the regular metallic cylinders and regular air drones as well. And now, if you're still watching, I have a very big surprise for you, because right now we're gonna talk about finally the mystery who was standing behind the elimination of Prigozhin. For some of you, the answer might be quite obvious, and no, it is not Putin, according at least to this report we're gonna talk about right now. But for some of you, this might come as a very unexpected result. And the person I'm talking about here is the Secretary of the National Security of Russia, and the very big friend, almost the right hand of Putin, as the guy called Nikolai Patrushev. And basically this is what this article talks about, just a quick summary of it. Starting back from 2022, in the very first month of the Russian invasion into Ukraine, Patrushev was already warning Putin about the ambitious plans of Prigozhin, that he will try to use his influence, money and finances in order to shake the confidence, to shake the power position of Putin. And of course, Putin at that time, he did not want to believe that much, because Prigozhin after all was his personal chef at some time in the past, and they were also some kind of friends. But then, whenever Wagner started to show, let's say so, some combat capabilities in Bakhmut, which allowed Russians to capture, unfortunately, this city, this is when Putin started to actually feel his dependability on Wagner and especially Prigozhin. And this is when Putin finally realized what Patrushev was warning him about. Because now Prigozhin was pretty much the one and only person in the entire history of modern Russia who had some upper hands above Putin. And obviously, in the very beginning, they started to try and distance Putin and Prigozhin by trying to create this rivalry between Wagner soldiers and the Ministry of Defense of Russia. You already know what I'm talking about, whenever they were not receiving ammunition, weapons, supplies, and they had to fight with whatever they had left. And obviously you already know what it led to. There was open confrontation between Prigozhin and, for example, Minister of Defense Shoigu and Chief of General Staff Mr. Valery Gerasimov. And Prigozhin was already openly talking bad things, let's be politically correct here, he was openly talking bad things about them. And it all culminated in obviously Wagner's march against Moscow, which lasted for several hours, and there was so many hopes from the West and even by the people of Russia, but unfortunately it stopped several hundred kilometers away from the capital. Prigozhin was promised security guarantees, he was promised he can just go to Belarus and live his life safely, but we all know that Putin never forgives traitors, and you can never, first of all, trust the president of Russia. That is why the process of his elimination started. And obviously, already at that time, everyone knew that in case Prigozhin is eliminated right away, everyone will start blaming Putin for this and suspecting him, which happened anyways, and we all still think it is Putin behind it. But maybe, just maybe, he was not the direct executive behind this elimination. Most likely it was one of his closest allies, Nikolai Patrushev, who talked about in the beginning of this chapter. This whole mission was individually handed to him, and Nikolai Patrushev, obviously trying to win to score additional points with Putin, gladly did it. The preparations took just several months, and even though it was not the most sophisticated operation, because he was literally destroyed in his own plane while flying, it was not like a Navalny case or anything like this. It was also to show the rest of the world, and specifically the Russian opposition, that in case you go against Putin, this is what will happen to you. And we do not care if the rest of the world knows that this was us behind the attack. We will even show it to the whole world to show that we are not afraid. This is the position of the Russian authorities in regards to anyone who wants to question their power. But obviously we will never know 100% for sure who was exactly the mastermind behind this attack, but at least this assumption makes the most sense, at least at the moment of recording this video. So guys, please let me know in the comments whether you agree or not. And also, if you want to receive literally hundreds of uncensored photos and videos, extra footage every single week, and if you want to support the channel, please go ahead and check my Patreon. This is where you can unlock all of this, starting as little as $4 for the entire month. And there is a 10% discount if you decide to go for the annual plan. The link is down below. Thank you so much, my patrons, for your support. Please like and subscribe to my channel, and see you tomorrow for a very special video.